Here's another garden update from LDS and Mrs. LDS Preppers Gardens. Here is the beautiful malabar spinach that grows really well in very hot weather. It's completely edible, but it has a strong flavor. We haven't found a way to prepare it that we've liked it. So if you have a favorite malabar spinach recipe, please comment or send me a message so we can give it a try. It certainly grows lots of spinach leaves and would be a great source of food and beauty to a garden. Underneath the malabar is my wife's strawberry bed. She ordered 25 of 2 different varieties of strawberries. Unfortunately, all of this variety over here, which is the sequoia strawberry, which is her favorite strawberry, have died. Over on this side, all but about 4 or 5 of the plants have died. So out of 50, we've got 4 or 5 plants alive. Fortunately, where we bought these plants have a 1-year plant guarantee, and so we wrote them a letter, sent back the packing slip, and they're sending us some new strawberries. We're not sure why they died. They've been shaded and watered, but maybe we just planted them too soon. The blackberries here have got a second growth. They're growing well. We don't expect any new fruit, but they're certainly healthy. Down at the base of the blackberries, we planted some mint that we picked up at Jim and Roxy Kennard's house when we went there for a visit. It was quite a long trip to get back home, and they looked pretty bad when they got here. They basically were just dead sticks. So I just stuck the sticks in the ground, and they have come back, and I'm sure just like any other mint, they will grow well and probably fill this bed. I'm very much looking forward to having mint in the garden. My grandmother had mint when I was growing up, and I loved going outside, smelling the mint, and being able to pick the leaves and make fresh mint tea. It's awesome. Here's one of my wife's garden beds that we converted to using the Mittleider method, probably 80% of the way. We've got the tea frames on here, and we're growing vertically, which makes a big difference in the production. Here she planted the cantaloupe. We're getting about a cantaloupe every other day now. I just come out in the morning and there's typically a cantaloupe laying right down in the soil. As we get closer, you can see that this has been inundated with aphids. And actually right here, this bug right here that was just eating an aphid, it looks like, is a stink bug nymph. Over here we have a ladybug doing some cleanup. And here is a ladybug nymph. So if you ever see this in your garden, that little bug will turn into this little bug. The aphid infestation could have easily been avoided had my wife been out in the garden and used the soapy water spray. I notified her of the arrival of the aphids, and she didn't do anything about it for about 2 to 2.5 weeks. By then, it was really an uphill battle. She spent hours and hours and hours out here spraying the aphids off with water from a water hose. Then she followed up once, or maybe twice, with a spray of soapy water mixture. So unfortunately that's impacted the health of the plants. It's attracted more insects over here. So do not wait if you start getting an infestation of any kind of insect to treat that. If you attack the problem quickly and early, you really minimize the negative impact on your garden. Don't have to worry about these infesting your other plants, and you'll increase the health and productivity of your plants. Here is the corn experiment. It's pretty much over. I don't think we're going to get any ears of corn out of here. The tassels are all dried up. They've been dried up for about a week or 2. So I think we have some lessons learned. We want to plant our corn much denser with multiple rows, remove the suckers, and because we have such a small garden, it's easy for us to remove the suckers, because typically you won't get an ear of corn off the suckers, because by the time that the sucker develops tassels where it can get pollinated, the corn above it that would be pollinating it has already gone through that phase and is not releasing any pollen. You can see here is the tomato plant that she grew and did not want to remove the suckers. Down here she let this sucker grow, and she grew it up another stick. Here it grew pretty well. Unfortunately, you can see it broke off here because it didn't have the support. That won't be a problem next season because we're removing all these beds and putting in one 30-foot long Mittleider grow box. Here is her box of bush beans. They're doing quite well. As you can see, the blossoms are coming out, so we expect to be able to have some beans out of here in the next few weeks. They look nice and healthy, although you can tell they need some more fertilizer. It's been raining here about every day, and so I've increased my application of fertilizer in my garden, and the same thing here would help this garden too. Here are her tomato plants that have over-summered. It was a lot of work, which we won't do again. We will harvest our tomato plants in June next year and plant seeds to grow seedlings, so we'll have new tomato plants growing for a fall harvest. For the amount of time, effort, fertilizer, and work that it took to nurse these plants through the summer, it just wasn't worth it to us. As with every season, now we're one season smarter. Her King Arthur bell pepper plants are doing really well. They're at least 6 feet tall now and are producing a lot of peppers. I'm very happy with this variety, and out of all the varieties that I planted and she planted, I think I've narrowed it down to this variety. It produces a lot of peppers and they have a nice size. Although I am still looking for pepper varieties, so if you have a favorite bell pepper variety, please comment below so I can give that a try next year. These peppers here were sunburned. Had they been harvested a week or so ago, we would have been able to save this fruit. It's important to be in your garden at least once a day, even just for a few minutes, so you're aware of any problems so you can take action to ensure a healthy and productive garden. I am still amazed at how well these sweet potatoes have done. They just keep growing and growing and growing, and I keep waiting for the plants to die back so I can harvest. From what I can tell when I check inside, we've got a lot of potatoes underneath these leaves. Remember, all of this came from just 3 sweet potatoes that my wife picked up from the grocery store that I grew slips from, and I planted in half of this grow box here. This is my tomato box, and it's a great experiment. On the far side over here, we have all the original tomato plants that I planted in spring. When I say all, I mean all the ones that have still survived through the summer. And on this side, this is 100% tomato cuttings from those tomato plants. So all of this side here came from suckers from the original plants planted in spring. This should give us a great comparison between tomato plants planted in the spring and suckers planted in the summer, and which one has a better fall harvest. I'm very happy with the health of these plants. I've come out here every day and taken care of them. At the very first sign of aphids or stink bugs, I went and got my soapy water spray and sprayed. I'm very pleased to announce that these plants, from what I can tell, are 100% bug free. Even these mature plants that I planted in spring are 100% bug free. I did find one of the plants yesterday when I was through here. A stem of the leaves were eaten off of one of the plants, and so I started looking for a hornworm. And it was interesting because I found a hornworm, and it was like in a cocoon wrapped up inside of this leaf here, not this particular leaf, but inside of a leaf, so you really couldn't see it, but it had built a little shelter. And I'm thinking during the day it hides in there, and then at night it opens up and comes out and eats the plant. Anyway, I found the hornworm. It was about this big, so it had only done damage to one stem. I took it out and it became a flatworm underneath my shoe. This is my carrot and lettuce bed. As you can see, I have some carrots here, and as you can see, I don't have any carrots here. The reason is because you really can't plant carrots and then transplant the seedlings because they're so small. So I'm planting here in the garden, and when the carrots get up a little bit, the rodents seem to come out and nibble on the fresh greens. So I've replanted here again, hoping we'll see carrots here in a few more days. And also, I planted new lettuce in the back here. You can see some lettuce coming up here already. I overplanted the lettuce, and I'll thin it once I see which plants make it through. I'd like to pass this hint on. This back here was always kind of swampy, and I could never figure out why until one day I realized that here in Texas we have an anti-reverse flow device that has to be on all outside faucets. And so whenever I would turn the garden hose off, water would come gushing out of here and be sitting in here all the time. So I put a bucket underneath here which didn't capture any water because the water was squirting out and coming down the wall. So I just took an old rag and a zip tie, put it around here where the water squirted out, and now when the water squirts out it hits the rag
It goes into the bucket. You can see we've collected a lot of water, and all that water would have been going into the soil here. The soil is quite wet here, but at least we don't have standing water like we used to. I showed you my wife's bush bean plants, and these are mine. You'll notice that my wife's plants are much larger, and that, I believe, is due to two things. When she planted her beans in the garden, she put a row cover over them to protect them from the heat. That made a huge difference, and like I mentioned in a previous video, the number one impact I see in a garden is the quality of the seedling. Because her plants were protected from the heat, they grew very, very well. Once they were well established, she removed the cover and has a nice thick bed of bush green beans. You can see I've got some blossoms ready to come up here, and so I'll be getting some beans on my plants too. Over here in my 20-foot long bed that I have a shade cover on, I have my fall squash, cucumbers, and beans planted. This entire bed here was completely eaten by rodents. And so this is the second, and in some cases, the third planting here. Another reason why to have a seedling table to grow your own plants so they're big enough that the rodents won't eat them and have a big head start in growing in the garden. A week ago, these plants didn't look anything like this. They were yellow and just not growing very well. I had my wife come out and take a look at my plants, and after walking down the row, she said they look hungry. Then it dawned on me, with all the rain that we're getting, the nutrients that I was giving in the Mittleider weekly feed were being flushed out of this soil. Because the soil is so light and airy and drains well, we were losing the nutrients. So I increased the frequency that I was feeding these plants to every 5 days, and they have really started taking off. Here I have butternut squash. Here's acorn squash. Here's summer squash. Here's my straight 8 cucumbers. A cantaloupe plant that I don't know that we have enough warm weather yet to have a good production. And then here's all of my Kentucky Wonder green beans. Once I started feeding these plants the amount of food that they needed, they really took off. They greened up and started growing like crazy. We have some of these plants within a week made it to the top of this 7-foot row here. And as you can see, they're up past the wire already. This is my strawberry box, and as you can see, unfortunately, just like in my wife's garden, it looks like pretty much all except for 1 or 2 of my strawberry plants have died. I've requested my other plants, and I've also changed the shade cloth that I have over this box here. I've changed it out to 50% shade cloth, and I hope when I put the new plants in, that'll make a big enough difference with the cooler temperatures so that the new plants will thrive. Here's my new seedling table that I just made. Please see the link below this video on how to build and why to have a seedling table in your garden. My bell peppers are still doing very well, and they add a lot of color to the garden. Here, the first couple plants are a yellow variety. Then I've got a purple variety, a green variety, and a red variety. I noticed during the summer they were quite a bit smaller than in the spring, but they are beautiful. In the last box I have cabbage planted, and then over here I have 2 different varieties of zucchini. The first one is Cocozella bush variety, and this one here is a golden bush variety. And over here I have a pumpkin plant growing. With the cooler weather and the additional weekly feed, these plants have really come on strong. I was walking back to the house after filming this garden update, and lo and behold, I found a cantaloupe that had ripened and fallen off the vines. This is exactly what we find on about an every other day basis. And so what we do is we just take this cantaloupe and we'll put it on the counter in the kitchen for a couple days and let it ripen up, and then put it in the refrigerator, and we'll have wonderful cantaloupe. Having a garden is a wonderful hobby to have. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if you are prepared, you shall not fear. And if you plant a garden, take good care of it, you'll be adding happiness and health to yours and other people's lives.